Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Paige, this is Seeking Alexandria, and if you are new here, welcome back to my channel. I am here with, you guessed it, well actually you might not have guessed it, this is the first installment of the medical monologues. I'm pretty excited about this because, picture it, like, circa I am 10 or 12 years old, and so we're like talking what, like 2001-ish, and I'm pretty excited about this because it was my first time ever at the shrink. Oh child. So I go, you know what, I don't even know that I need this because I got this. So I go to the shrink. Keep in mind, my pediatrician referred me to a shrink for depression and anxiety. Why was I referred for depression and anxiety? I had the classic symptoms. What are the classic symptoms? Still never found out at this point. Wait till I tell you when I find out. But I had the classic symptoms of depression and anxiety. I need to see a shrink. So my mom, being the good noodle that she was, says, well, let's find us a shrink for good old Paige over here. She needs a shrink. Doctor says so. Okay, sounds good. Can't fault mom for that. So we go. Deet, deet, deet. Mr. Shrink Man. We go in. I meet with the shrink guy. He sits me down. He explains to me, you realize as long as it's not harming yourself or someone else, you can tell me anything you want. It's classified. I'm like, okay, sounds great. What do you want to know? I had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing there. I didn't understand like what was wanted. It was just, I was so confused. So he's like, okay, he's trying to like explain it to me. He's asking me questions about like school, my friends, home, all that stuff. And I was just like, oh, like, okay. And I answered his questions and whatever. Like to this day, if you ask me questions, like I'll answer them. That's kind of what I'm best at. I'm able to do these kind of videos, but like, it's more of I think of questions that people would ask me and then I answer them, It's not like I'm just good at like droning on and on aimlessly. I have to have like pointed questions that I can kind of answer. That's what's easiest for me. And I think he understood that for like the first 20 minutes. So that was cool. After that, oh man, I was sitting there and I was looking up at his ceiling. And this was like the second time we met. And I didn't talk because, again, I didn't have much to say. He asked me like, what do you think about? And I would be like, like just in a day. And he'd say, oh yeah, what do you think about in a day? And I'd say, well, I think about like relationships and my parents' marriage and like bills and stuff. And then he'd say, oh, well, are those things, are they bad? Do you feel like there's tension in the household? And I was like, no, I just think about them. I just think about relationships. I think about, my friends, and I think about if so-and-so is talking to so-and-so again, and if they resolve their argument. I think about bills and how do adults pay bills and how do you come up with money for things? And this is just what I think about. And he's like, but why? And I said, I don't know. It's just how I've always been. I've never been the type of kid that was ever really a kid. Even as an adult, if you ask me, how was your childhood? It was fun. It was fine. I never really thought much like a kid. Don't get me wrong. Like all kids are kind of like a kid. But as far as what I thought about and what mattered to me, it mattered more to me that I, get these two friends talking again than it did that I took a recess or went and, went to a friend's birthday party. That kind of thing just wasn't really what I was into. I was so consumed with like relational type things and like fixing problems and stuff. So anyways, I explained that to him and he was kind of like, that's weird, and he was convinced there was something wrong with my home life. I'm like, nope, my parents are fine. You got some loud kids running around. You got some loud parents. One of them likes Enya. The other one likes Ozzy. And it's just, it's a lot of loud, but never loud in the sense of like, I hate you and oh my God, I wasted my best years. I didn't have that. Like my parents were cool. I've had really cool parents. I had a cool upbringing. That wasn't really it at all. And so we're sitting there, back to my story. We're sitting there on like our second meeting and I'm looking up at the wall because he had like a top shelf. We were sitting in his office. I was in a chair. He was in a chair. I sat there, the whole time like a good little doodle. And I was looking up at his wall where he kept his games. And he had board games for kids, I'm assuming. Do you think I was ever offered to play these board games? No, but whatever. And I'm looking at him and he's like, well, what are you looking at? And I said, your board games. And he goes, oh, well, what are you thinking? I'm thinking, I want to be playing your board games, but I'm not going to say that. Mama taught me not to be rude. You wait till something is offered. So I said, I was just looking at the games that you're missing. And he goes, well, what am I missing? And I said, well, first of all, you're missing Moncala, which is like one of the best games ever. And so I'm a little bit upset about that. But, other than that, and I listed off some games, and he's like, oh, well, do you have memories associated with those? Are there reasons you like them? And I was like, they're the best games. That's why I like them. I have great taste in games. I take my games very seriously. So, we talked about that. That killed about, I don't know, a solid 4 minutes. And then other than that, we were back to silence. I just didn't have anything to say. And I think that he was growing super, super frustrated. So by the time we get to that third meeting where I didn't have anything to say, he enters the meeting and the shrink visit. I don't even know what you call those visits, office visit, shrinkitude. I don't know. But he comes in and he sits down and he goes, so you going to talk today? And I was like, well, yeah, what do you want to talk about? I was just super lighthearted. I was never like angsty. I didn't think I was coming across that way. God only knows how I was actually coming across, but I was talking to him and all of a sudden he starts swearing, not like swearing at me like, you stupid piece of, but more of like a swearing. And I think as an adult, I think he was swearing to try and get me to feel comfortable with him. Like he was trying to meet me kind of where I was at. And so he starts swearing and he's like, well, if you're just going to waste everyone's effing time and you're F this and you're, and he was just very like, why, I don't know why you're acting so bitchy. All we're all trying to do is help you. And I was like, all of us? Sir, I see you and I see me, but like what little gremlins you got hiding out under your table? I don't see nobody else. And he was like, your mom and everybody that's going through all this to get you here and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, you need to calm your tits because you're really upset for no reason. You're kind of overreacting. Maybe you should spin your little chair around, talk to yourself because you're getting a little upset. But whatever. So I said, I'm sorry that you're upset, but like, I don't have anything to say. And I honestly didn't think at the time that I had... Whoa, I just dropped everything. I honestly didn't think that I had anything that I needed to talk about. Like I just didn't, in my mind, there wasn't anything that was like bothering me. There wasn't anything I didn't think that needed to be talked about. And I just didn't think there was. So he puts on his face and he goes out and he gets my mom. And he has like that you're in trouble, neener, neener, neener face. And so he brings my mom in and he basically tells my mom that I'm wasting everyone's time. I'm wasting everyone's money. Like we've had 3 visits at this point and this has been a complete waste. Like don't bring her back here. My mom was upset, obviously, like she thinks there's something wrong with her kid. Her kid's not talking, yada, yada. So before we leave, he interjects with, oh, and by the way, yeah, just so you know, I'm pretty sure your kid, she's exhibiting all the classic signs of severe depression and anxiety. So like, here's some medication. And I remember thinking like, you just basically came right out and said like, you don't know me. So what in your mind constitutes severe depression and anxiety? Well, that's good. And I was just like, okay, listen, that's a little better. So anyways, the classic symptoms, I guess, were that I was reclusive, I was secretive, I was always thinking about things, but I would never share what I was thinking about. And I remember thinking like, I would have told you, you just never asked me. Like, you never asked me what I was thinking about. You asked me like, was I anxious and was I this and that? What in the world? So what of course happens after you get diagnosed with things? Well, A, you have it for the rest of your life. And B, they start you on drugs. So I was like right around 12 years old, they start me on, my depression and my anxiety medications. Joy to the world, I tried like 5 different ones of each and then like combo platters and like 2-for-1 specials. And God only knows. Drugs or buffets. And I tried all these different drugs and nothing would work because, now that I'm an adult, we know that that's when my tumor had started growing. So there was probably like a hormone element in there from my tumor that was like affecting it all. And anyways, so we go through all this and I would still have mood swings. Well, of course, every time you have a mood swing, the medicine's not working. We better change the medicine. So I ended up feeling like even worse, like I felt like I couldn't have a mood swing or I couldn't be upset. So you basically took a teenager and made her feel like she can't be upset, like she can't have any emotion. Because every time I showed an emotion, had to get a new drug, had to have some kind of something to help with the flare up. And after like, I'd say probably 4 years of this, I was like a freshman in high school. Finally, when I talked to my mom and I said, Mom, this is ridiculous. Like enough is enough. This stuff isn't helping. I'm constantly trying new medicines, constantly trying new everything. and it's not working. Like, I'm not better. If anything, I'm more and more frustrated because I keep getting told that I'm not working with the medicine. And my mom was like, no, you're right. This is a little ridiculous. So I had already started to wean myself off of my medicine at this point. Don't do that, by the way. Don't do that. That's bad. Wean yourself off at your doctor's discretion. But, you know, I was young and stupid. So I weaned myself off of all my medications that they had me on for my 9th grade year. Which is a little ironic if I think about it, because my 9th grade year is definitely by far, like, if I had to classify my most depressed year, the year where I was the most, like, inner turmoiled, that would be the year. I have a hump on my head. Great. But that would have been the year. And so it's a little ironic now that I look back at it that I'm just like, oh, Lord, honey, you picked the worst time. But it is what it is. So all these years go by of me, like, on and off of different drugs, and, like, God only knows, like, what they're doing to my brain. And I just remember thinking that that whole experience with that shrink and how he treated me and the way that I was spoken to and how I was treated, like, almost more of a problem that needed to be solved. Like I was an equation that they wrote on the whiteboard that no one could figure out how to solve for X. I think that it was more a problem of they being, you know, the doctors, whether it be the shrink or my pediatrician or whoever, they never looked at me and said, like, how about we figure out how her brain is working, why she's not talking. Instead, they just looked at me and just wrote me off like every other kid, you know, every other little shithead that walked in their door that had that attitude. Apparently this is the universal symbol for attitude, by the way. Cute, right? So, and I, as an adult, I think back and I think about how does this affect me going forward? Because every video that I do, you'll hear me say that, how does this affect me going forward, and kind of what I want to change about people, society, the world, or whatever the subject is. And I think for this, the thing I've learned is that I have nieces and nephews now, and I would hate for any of them to be treated or spoke to the way that I was. I would never want any of them to be put under a similar scrutiny like I was. And I would hope that if anyone ever spoke to them or wanted to know what was wrong, that they would stop, and instead of approaching them with, you know, page mind, that I would approach them with the whichever niece or nephew it is, with their mind, you know, look at things from their point of view. And maybe if you can see things through their eyes, maybe it would help better understand why they're thinking what they're thinking, maybe why they're not talking. You know, I think back, and if that shrink had asked me, I'm not saying that he needed to ask me all the right questions and it's all his fault, but I feel like if he had taken the time to stop and be personable, like if he had went the opposite direction, and instead of like attacking me with swear words and trying to like be a teen, why didn't you stop and think to yourself, wow, like this kid's not like normal kids her age. She thinks really like advanced. She thinks beyond her years. Not like, oh, she's so smart. But, you know, she thinks more like instead of a 12-year-old, she thinks more like a 16-year-old. So maybe, you know, maybe I need to change the way that I think. And I feel like instead he said, here's a 12-year-old. How does a 12-year-old talk? They want to swear. I'm going to swear at them. And I just feel like it was such a juvenile mindset to carry. So that's something that I kind of would say I took from this, is just talking to people or kids or, you know, whatever their age is, but talking to them in a way that's appropriate to them to maybe better understand what they're doing, why they're saying it, and that kind of thing. Okay, guys, that is it. That draws the very first session of the Medical Monologues to a close. I can't say that these will be like in a strict order. I can't say that they will be done like a certain way. I think honestly they're just going to be like different recounts of different like medical things that have happened in my life. Who knows? They might go in order. I don't really know yet. I haven't decided. I just know that I really wanted to start with this one because it's one that I actually think about quite often, and I don't know. I just think about it, and I was like, well, if you think about it, then you should probably talk about it because it was relevant in some way then, right? Right. So that is it. I will leave my social media handles down below so you can find them, because that's where you find me. Oh yeah, girl. I don't know why. This is like my go-to. I just like. So thank you guys for dancing with me. As always, gotta dance it out. Yeah. Got some crazy shoulders. I got some crazy shoulders. I hope that you guys all have like the great balance of your day, whatever it may look like. I can't wait to do some more medical monologues, some more like makeup stuff. I have got a ton of makeup stuff in the way for y'all. Oh my good Lord, I'm so excited. I got some good stuff coming. Whew, good stuff is on the way. It's popping. It's popping. So thank you for accepting me and all of my end of the day makeup face. Oh, this is looking cute. This makeup's been on my face for like 13 hours today, and it's still like, don't get me wrong, it's not the best, but like contour is still pretty good, highlights popping. I mean, a little bit of the foundation is kind of worn off, I'd say. Like, I don't have the best coverage. That, by the way, that right there, yeah, got scratched in the face. That was cute, so I can't wait to try and cover that tomorrow. But anyways, okay, I drone on like a incessant little leech, but I shall talk to you guys all in the next video, and I'm super excited to get this new segment started. But I hope you guys have a nice night, and bye. Oh, Frita wants to dance. Why always the fingers? Let's do something else. I want to redo. Still fingers, but whatever. We're just gonna let it happen.